All right, Jabosai, good morning. Let's just spend a few moments on Reb Tzaddik, because we have a lot to do today on the daf as well, but wanted to make a little bit more headway in Os Kuf, which was the same piece we started 2 days ago. So remember again, just to reorient ourselves a little bit, Reb Tzaddik advanced a really beautiful idea that the notion of tshuva, which means return, ultimately refers to the idea that when we sin, we remove certain things from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the process of tshuva is a process of returning those very items back to the Ribbono Shel Olam. So we explained perhaps one of the easiest ways to illustrate this, one of the simplest ways to illustrate this is a person commits an Aveira. An Aveira requires koach. An Aveira requires strength, requires abilities, requires skills. Those are skills that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given me, that now I've, so to speak, hijacked, used for the commission of sin. And so part of the process of tshuva is to give those very things back to the Ribbono Shel Olam. So he continues in Kuf. We'll just do a few lines today. He says, Ritzoni Lomar, I'm in the Bi'uria Chasidus, the left-hand column, section Kuf, 3 lines down. Ritzoni Lomar, Shemakir Achote Shakol Ma She'adam Oseh. The person who sins realizes that everything that a person does, Harehu Poal Hashem Yisbarach V'Kocho, everything a person does is a result of the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives him the ability to do so. V'afilo machshava tera notzra b'libo shel adam, even thought, the concept of thought, before thought materializes in the heart of man, ultimately, again, that thought is already revealed and known before HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As Chazal teach us, Nimsa, Shashem Yisbarach, Hu Zeh, Asher Nasan Lo Es HaKoach Ve'es HaMachshava. So this is actually quite amazing. So it turns out that the Ribbono Shel Olam is the one who gives me every single piece of koach, every single unit of strength, piece of strength, and also every single thought. There's no such thing as strength or thought that doesn't emanate from before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is really something amazing. As Gam Ba'asiyah, so therefore, I'm sorry, Nimtza Shashem Yisbarach Zuzeh, Asher Nosan Lo Sakoach Ve'es HaMachshava, As Gam Ba'asiyas Ma'aseh HaAveira. So Tzaddik says something amazing. So therefore it turns out, if I accept the premise that everything comes from Hashem, including thought and including actional ability, it turns out that even the thought to commit an Aveira and even the actional ability to commit an Aveira comes from who? Comes from Hashem. Comes from Hashem. There's nothing in my life, there's nothing in this world, there's nothing in my dynamic activity that doesn't come from the Ribbono Shel Olam, including the thought and including the action for the commission of an Aveira. V'al yidei zeh, shemakira adam b'kach. When a person recognizes this, azai achar hatshuva hagimura hu zocha shafilu zidonos averos sha'avar b'mezid nasin lo zechuyos. Well, say, listen to this. So therefore, the Rebbe posits, and I just want to highlight this point, the Rebbe posits that that's part of tshuva. Part of tshuva is recognizing that everything, even the thoughts and actional abilities to commit an Aveira, also come from Hashem. It all comes from Hashem. We'll say, why is that part of tshuva? So I think what Reb Tzaddik is highlighting over here is chait is a removal of oneself from Hashem. That's what chait is. I'm gravitating away from God. So on one hand, I'm taking my abilities that should be used for good, and now I'm using them chas v'shalom for negative things. I'm taking my abilities, my kochos, and I'm removing them from Hashem. The irony of that is that it's those very kochos, those very abilities, both physical and cognitive, which allowed me to sin, come from who? From HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So I'm taking that which God has given me, and I'm using them against the Ribbono Shel Olam. which I will say, if you think about it, is so wild. It's so wild. It's almost as if, imagine for a moment, you give your child an allowance, right? You give your child an allowance, and the child takes the allowance to go ahead and do something illicit. So it's bad enough if my kid does something that's not good, but to take the money that I gave you and now to use it for something negative, it compounds the transgression. So it says, Hatzaddik, what do we do when we commit an Aveira? HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives me thought, and now I use that thought to decide what I'm going to do. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives me strength, dynamic ability. Now I take that dynamic ability and I use it to sin. So Hatzaddik says, that compounds the Aveira. But what's tshuva? Tshuva is when I recognize that all comes from Hashem and I return it back to Him. So when I recognize that both my cognitive ability, my actional ability comes from Hashem, and now I say, okay, Rebbeinu Shalom, I hijacked and I misused it, now I want to return it. The act of taking those kochos that are from Hashem and returning them to Hashem, that's tshuva. That's the return. That's the process of tshuva, says Reb Tzaddik. So I'll stop over here for today. We'll pick up B'nai Hashem on Monday to see how practically, how do I actually accomplish that? Shkach Abosei. Little Reb Tzaddik, that's a good way to start the day. All right.